Today we're going to talk about security systems and the basics of how they work. So a security system at its core is a network of devices, security devices, life safety devices, could be even smart home type devices like door locks and thermostats that communicate with a primary panel or a base station of some sort. Now in the case of the IQ panel, everything is built into the IQ panel to allow it to communicate to a wide variety of devices using a lot of different protocols. Now that sounds like a fancy word, but it's basically a way to describe a wireless signal type. Okay? Think of it this way. This door sensor uses a protocol called 319.5. It's 319 megahertz. So imagine tuning your radio to a certain station. This, when it gets to that station, this then can broadcast to this. Wi-Fi uses a different radio station. Z-Wave and other protocols use different radio stations. So each of them use a different radio station. That way they don't interfere with each other, okay? We know what it's like when you go to a radio station and there's kind of like one radio station playing in the background. You're out, maybe driving out in the country on a road trip, things like that. So to make things work well, the security industry has developed specific radio protocols or specific radio frequencies for each type of sensors, okay? So this one is a 319.5 megahertz wireless sensor, which means that it's broadcasting on that signal to the panel. Now, when this sensor opens or closes, it does certain things. When the panel's not armed, opening and closing it simply allows the panel to chime, and it will say the sensor's name, front door open. Yeah, front door open, front door closed, things like that. If the system is armed, then when you open it, it will do one of two things. If you've got it programmed so that this sensor has what's called a delay on it, so if, for example, on a front door, it might have a 30-second delay to allow you time to get to the panel and actually type in your code. In some cases where you don't want a delay, let's say it's a bedroom window, opening that sensor would immediately set off the alarm. Okay? So when that alarm goes off, there are components within the panel that actually respond the way that they're supposed to. So first off, the radio for the security frequency receives the signal saying door open. Then the processor on board says doors open, therefore you must do this. And based on whether it's armed or not armed, it will then perform the certain protocols. In the event that it's armed and a code is not put in at the certain time, then it sends a message to the siren inside the panel to start emitting its sound. Now these sirens are super loud. I think it's like 80, 90 decibels, which is ear-splitting. Yes. And depending on what kind of alarm it is, will determine what kind of tone it emits. So in some cases, a security signal will set off just a straight pulsing siren. In other cases, if it's a life safety type scenario, like maybe it's a medical button that someone wears on their wrist or as a pendant, or if it's like a smoke detector, it'll pulse at a different rate. It'll go like beep, 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 things like that. So depending on what the scenario is, the siren will pulse at a different rate. Now it's not just the siren that's pulsing at this point. There's also radios inside here that are connected to your cellular tower, as well as to your Wi-Fi network. And those radios are immediately going into action saying, hey, let's send the signal out saying that the alarm is going off.
And is that when response agencies come?
Somewhat. So the way it works is the LTE radio and the Wi-Fi radio send a signal up to alarm.com's cloud. The alarm.com cloud servers instantly transfer that signal to the local monitoring station. A monitoring station is a group of individuals working inside a building who are watching these signals as they come in, and if it is an alarm signal, they will then call out to the home to make sure everything's okay. So here's the scenario, for example. Let's say you come home, you open up the front door, okay? You walk inside the house, you forget to disarm the system, okay? The panel siren goes off, okay? The alarm goes off, the signal goes to the monitoring station saying the alarm is going off. They will then use the built-in microphones and speakers on the panel to come over the panel and speak to you and say, is everything okay?
Cool, so they'll verify before.
Yeah, so we call it two-way voice. You're talking to them, they're talking to you through the panel. And they say, hey, is everything okay? And you say, yeah, it's fine. It was an accident. I was bringing in the groceries and I didn't get to the code in time. I apologize. At that point, they don't just take your word for it, because what if you're a criminal saying that?
Right.
So they'll actually ask you, what is your password? And you'll have a unique password assigned to you and your family. And if you can't provide the proper password to them, that's when they send the police out. Okay?
Cool.
So let's say that you get it and you say, oh, the password's banana pancakes. Okay, great. Everything's fine. If the password was actually, let's call it strawberry daiquiri, okay, then in that case, what's going to happen is they're going to say, okay, thanks very much. They're going to hang up. They're not going to tell you that the password's wrong. They're going to send the police out. And the police are going to come to the house because they're going to assume that you gave the wrong password because maybe you were under duress or you're actually not the person that's supposed to be there.
Okay.
In which case, unless you give the authorized password, the monitoring station calls the police station and says, hey, we've got someone, the alarm is going off, we're talking to them right now, they're not giving the proper passwords, it sounds like everything's fine, but you might want to go check it out. And then the police will then go.
Cool.
Now, in some cases, let's say that this was an actual break-in. Okay, the door opens up. Okay, they go into the house and the siren starts going off. Call goes to the monitoring station, and the person who's robbing the house or intruding in the house doesn't want to say anything. So they'll come over the speakers and the microphones and say, "Hello, is everything okay? The alarm's going off. You know, do you need assistance?" And it's quiet. They don't hear anything. Maybe they hear someone walking around and moving in the background, things like that. These high fidelity microphones are very sensitive and can pick up noise from pretty decent distance.
Cool. Okay.
And each home's different, so you can't say how far that exactly is, but it will be able to pick it up, you know, potentially even in another room. So the monitoring station agent can hear very well, and they hear something. I hear someone moving around. I can hear you in there. Can you please come to the panel and identify yourself? If that person doesn't come to the panel and identify themselves and provide the proper password, again, they're calling the police and saying, we've got a confirmed alarm. We hear someone in there, but they're not coming to the panel. That either means that they're unable to come to the panel because they're injured, or they refuse to come to the panel because it's a real intrusion. In which case, the police are coming even more quickly. It's called an expedited alarm or a verified alarm. They verify that someone's in the home, but they're refusing to come to the panel. So now the police are arriving, and they're doing what the police do. They're knocking on the door, they're looking in the windows. You know, depending on the situation, they will take the appropriate action. Now, simultaneously to them calling the police, they're also calling your list of emergency contacts. Okay? Now, in your case, they're going to call you first. Hey, we've got, you know, and they might even call before they dispatch the police. Hey, we've got noise in your house. The siren's going off. No one's answering, but we can hear someone moving around. Is there anyone at home? And you can be like, oh, yeah, that's probably my cat. Or, no, there shouldn't be anyone there, in which case, again, they know it's a verified alarm. If they can't get you on the phone, then what they'll do is they'll call down your list of emergency contacts. That's why every security company will ask you, can you make a list of 3 or 4 people that we can call in an emergency? And it could be a neighbor that maybe has a key to your house or access to your home. It could be a family member. It could be a friend. You know, somebody that can answer the phone and can potentially come over and represent you if you're not.
Cool. Okay.
So then that neighbor, let's say that neighbor comes over and says, no, unlocks the door for the policeman. The police go inside, search the house, things like that. We don't see any evidence of anyone. That's when they would, again, try and call you back and be like, hey, the alarm's going off. We searched the house. Your neighbor let us in. We don't see any evidence of anyone. We don't know why the alarm's going off. And they'll then turn the alarm off at that point. But at least now you've been informed and they've done their job.
Yeah, definitely. It's all verified.
Now, whether or not that person was scared away, the intruder was scared away, or they're hiding in your house somewhere, things like that, that's part of the challenge with this kind of stuff. But the goal here is, first off, to scare the people away. That siren goes off, it's super loud, the person knows, I'm going to get busted, I'm going to get out of here because I'd rather go hit a house that doesn't have a security system.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why security companies will put those window stickers on the outside of your windows and the yard signs. Exactly.
I've seen those. Okay.
So they put the yard sign out front so that an intruder walking up to the house says, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, into which house will I go? And they go, I'm going to pick the one without the yard sign because there's less chance of me breaking in. Okay? And that's another reason why it's so important to arm your system regularly, because anytime you're not at home, and even when you are at home, if someone were to break in, you want that effect. You want the alarm going off and the ability for the communication to occur the way that we've just described it. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.